Well, welcome back. I wanted to give you a quick update as to what is happening here across the upper Midwest, the rest of the area, across the upper portions of the United States, into the higher latitudes, where we once again have several storms that are passing on by. This Lake Michigan camera, though, on the Grand Haven side, where the temperature is 34 degrees, has been pretty ominous here over the last couple of hours. I've been watching this thing. Actually, I can zoom in closely to show you the breakers coming in and crashing at the little house here on the end of the pier. Check it out. We've had some really high surf coming in here, and some of those breakers are up into the 4 and 5 foot range over the past little while. And you can see they're pretty rough out there, white capping as well, just offshore. That has been the case over the last few hours as the fetch has come in more and more from the west, just crashing up there onto the pier and across the rest of the area. It's been a big deal there through the day today. There'll be more where that came from, especially any of the Great Lakes as we move through. And over the next 24 hours, certainly what we will be watching. We got a lot of stuff going on here. The main player here is low pressure that'll be moving across the upper portions of the Great Lakes. It'll shift the winds out of the west, southwest, and that will indeed bring more in the way of precipitation right up and through the alleys that are responsible for some of the super high amounts of snowfall that you get this time of the year when you talk about lake effect snow. That's going to be the big deal for the northeastern part of Lake Erie around Buffalo. You talk about a close call. This Buffalo call is super close. You go anywhere north of the city toward Niagara, and there's appreciable amounts less snowfall that could fall there, and then so much more that could fall south of the city. Actually, as you work your way down toward Erie, where it's snowing right now pretty heavily in some of those locations. So certainly we'll be watching all of that as we move through time. And just to show you what we're looking at here, basically, is some of the heavier snow that'll make its way across the area as we get into the evening hours today, because some of this is really taking its time about shifting and moving back in to the Buffalo area. I want to take a look, first of all, at some of the modeling, the computer modeling here. This is the HRR, which tells us that as we move through time here over the hours to come, the winds will shift, come more out of the southwest right up Lake Erie, and that's going to dump heavy amounts of snowfall in and around Buffalo and the Lake area. I mean, there's some totals here which go up to 60 inches before this is all said and done. Then it kind of shifts down to the south a little bit. The trajectory, the vector does, and so the bulk of the snow goes south of the city of Buffalo. Looks like toward Colden and the rest of the area that would be southward and westward toward Erie. Nonetheless, you're messing with a loaded gun here at this point, because somewhere along here, whether it's in the city of Buffalo or just off to the south, there's a tremendous amount of snow that is going to fall. Same back over to the west here, looking into that area there around Benton Harbor. It looks like you get further to the north as we go along the interstate here, right on up 196 over to South Haven, which we were looking at just a few moments ago. South Haven's right there on the edge of the Great Lakes. We've already got a mixed area that's coming on through the region, but snow should begin to pick up as we go through and into the next several hours. Watch what happens during the day tomorrow in particular. That's 8 p.m. tonight. And then during the day tomorrow, I think this really blows up into this area, and we'll have the same kind of trajectory. We'll have the same fingers of moisture that are coming in here as well. So this is a volatile place during the day. Actually, during the next 48 hours, that portion of western Michigan, if you will. Right now, the radar, let's go back and look at the radar imagery here across the region. We'll start out with the single radar just to show you. So shifted a little bit here back into that area that is just to the south of Buffalo. We'll go to the Buffalo radar and show you this. Just now beginning to come in. Now there's some rain mixed in with this from time to time. Beginning to see the winds shifting. You can see the arrows down here, the vectors coming in from the south and west. This is kind of new. But this is now going to pour it on for this area. You'll really start to see the precipitation picking up back here on the western side of the lake, and then moving then across the northeastern portions of the lake before coming on shore. Some of those areas from Buffalo down to Erie. I just checked the Erie camera. There's quite a bit of snow already falling there across that portion. So we'll be looking out for that to pile up through the rest of this evening, as well as the other areas. But no matter how you look at it, this is shaping up to be a big-time event. Maybe as much as 4 feet of snow could be falling here before it is all over with. So that would be a big deal for anybody. Visible satellite imagery through the day. Once again, you can see the southern part of the jet stream super active from Texas all the way back up through South Alabama and then stretches off the Atlantic coastline there. But what we're really paying attention to is north up here. This is Lake Erie that you do see. This is a sandwich satellite that shows you. It's kind of a compilation between visibility and infrared, or the change in temperature between the cloud and the ground. And so at this point, it's A, made me hungry, and B, not much. But things are going to be changing pretty quickly overall as we move through time and we get into the next 24 to 48 hours with what's happening here. You can see the satellite imagery, and this is visible from early in the day today. This is as if you had a camera 22,500 miles up into space and you were looking down and seeing the cloud deck moving across the water. Cold air coming in across that system as well, but that's Buffalo right in the middle of your picture, and Watertown just off to the north. So the Fed is kind of coming back around again. It's going to take it a little while to come back around and shift out of the southwest, but when it does so, that's when you'll be pouring it on. Took this early this morning, and once again, the flow was, somewhat shortened. The fetch was shortened. The distance between land and land again, which is going to be the direction that the wind is coming out of. It was out of the northwest there, but from Cleveland to Ashtabula to Erie to Dunkirk, it's now beginning to shift out of the west just a little bit more. That doesn't put Cleveland into it, I don't think. Akron, you're safe out of this one as well, but Ashtabula northward to Erie, Dunkirk, and Buffalo, watch out right there. Not a good place to be traveling in that region. I noticed that already a lot of the shelves were empty there at some of the area supermarkets and stuff. So make sure that you have all of your provisions. And if we get up into that 4-foot range, I know you've been there before, but that's serious stuff. That's when you have to start worrying about carbon monoxide poisoning if you're trapped inside of your home. That's when you have to worry about checking on the elderly and making sure that they have somebody to take care of them. And again, it's all being reinforced by our satellite imagery with the cold front coming in pretty rapidly now from the west and moving on eastward across the rest of the country as a whole. So definitely we'll be looking at that. The cold front itself, whip it on by. Warm lakes now, 48 to 50 degrees. And so we're bringing in that moisture. It goes up into the upper portions of the atmosphere before coming back down again over land, and that's where it's cold enough for it to be coming down as a frozen dendritic snowflake. Once a snowflake, always a snowflake. It cannot melt, by the way. But the surface analysis now says the low's just off to the north there over the northern sections of Michigan. It's about ready to drop on by. When it does so, those lines of equal barometric pressure will line up and be perpendicular to Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and all the like there across much of that area. So we're definitely going to be watching what happens there. Some of the local offices, well, this is the one, if you will, out of Grand Rapids saying 8+ inches of snow. Still possible tonight from Kalamazoo over to Muskegon. Maybe 4 to 6 inches into the interior. Jackson, maybe about a trace or so. Heavy snowfall tonight as well, over 12 inches by Friday morning in some locations. Not Alpena, not Drummond Island, but you see on the left-hand side here, Charlevoix and looks like Frankfurt at 3. It depends on where you are, but some of the higher totals definitely going to be seen on the western side of Michigan. You get up here to the northern part of the Mitten, you're talking about localized 12 inches plus, potential for 4+ everywhere, but right there into that area that goes down to Traverse City or northward to Pellston, you're really looking at the highest chance for getting a foot of snowfall or greater in those areas as we go on through the next 24 hours into the overnight hours tonight and the early part, actually, of Saturday morning. There's 6 inches of snow possible across all of this area going into the next 36 hours. That includes Sunday at 7 p.m. Hazardous travel for sure. Gusty winds may lead to blowing and drifting snow at times. That's always a possibility. And still looking like that is a high risk there for that to happen. From the National Weather Service out of Gaylord, they're predicting the lake effect snow to continue through the night tonight. Maybe getting as much as 5 to 10 inches of snowfall here. The wind chill is going to be a factor as well, down into the single digits. But the snow should finally taper off late Sunday, with temperatures slightly warming up again on Monday. How much snow could fall in Flint? We're looking at the eastern, northern side of Michigan. Snowfall, not that much. 1 to 3 is likely. That's going to be west of I-75, basically from the Pontiac-Saginaw area westward. It really doesn't, you're not in the belt this time, so it really doesn't look like that's going to be a big deal. Half inch or less for Ann Arbor and the Detroit metro area here. And if you look into the eastern side of Detroit, temperatures will be quite cold. We'll be looking at lows, high struggling to get out of 30 degrees, but lows will be down into the 20s, and the feels like temperature, wind chill is going to be well down into the single digits as a result of having 25 and 30 mile per hour winds whipping out of the west for much of the day on Saturday, and then again into Sunday. And the snowfall forecast once again showing you some of the higher totals, definitely going to be there on the northeastern side of Lake Erie and going on northward here into Ontario, Lake Ontario. Huron, not so much. We really don't have that kind of fetch to do that. But this is a Pulaski area. Watertown really doesn't look like a whole lot there. Now, how does this happen? Well, we're looking at basically a wind coming in across the Great Lakes, but once it gets lifted by the land on the other side, the narrow bands of heavy snow will build and grow. And that's going to be dumping a lot of snowfall through the interior. It takes about a mile or two to come onshore before it really changes over to the heavy stuff. But then at that point, it can last for hours on end, dumping 1.5 inches to 2 inches per hour. Sometimes when it gets in that kind of a mood, that would certainly be the case that we would be watching out for and doing so very quickly. The big globe here at the moment, once again, has everything about it here that we're looking at showing up into the southwestern portions of the country as rainfall all the way down from the southwestern jet that comes into the southeast to what you can really see is the low that's pushing across the northern section, southern Canada, and the rest of that region there is what we are basically looking at. I just put this in. They just updated this to now 48 to 60 inches of snow. Buffalo southward in particular along I-90, down to Dunkirk at 18 to 24. Batavia, about 8 to 12 inches of snowfall there, and Lockport at about 8 to 12. Through the interior I-90, getting over to Rochester and the Dansville area, not much, 1 to 2 inches. It's all going to get dumped out, squeezed out right in through here from Warsaw over to Springville. Go northward, though, along I-90 and get over to the northern part of Lake Huron here that we were looking at, Ontario, from Pulaski, 18 to 24, south of Watertown, 18 to 24. You get the picture. There's quite a bit of that will be showing up there at that location as we do move along, because nothing's going to change very quickly in the short term. By the way, this is the time of year for significant tornado possibilities across the deep south, roughly from Alabama back over to Mississippi, but we don't have any severe weather chances at this point. But just as a note, climatology says on this day, if we were going to have an F2 or stronger tornado within 25 miles, it would be in that general area that we'd be talking about. Woo! A lot to talk about. We're going to keep you up to date, but I wanted to just give you this update here because we did one earlier, and that's kind of diminished in accuracy, I think. This is going to be changing fluidly as we go through the rest of the night tonight and in the early part of the day tomorrow. I'm meteorologist David Neal. You're watching LSM, Live Storms Media Television. Brett Adair and myself. Brett is low in throat abilities this evening. He's not going to be able to talk very much, and he's got a lot to do, so I thought I'd do this very quick update. I'm going to have some dinner. I hope you do too, and we'll be talking throughout the rest of the night tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back here shortly.